Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Game Over Winnipeg. My name is Brady. I will be your host tonight on a night where the Winnipeg Jets lose 3-0 to the juggernaut Boston Bruins. A pretty frustrating game, honestly, from watching as a Jets fan. I thought the Jets played surprisingly well. They've had some good showings over the past little bit. Obviously the taking 4 points in both Florida games was huge. I thought that they played pretty decently against the Hurricanes, just a couple issues here and there. And tonight, all around, not that bad of a game from the Winnipeg Jets. I thought that they played pretty well. Just some mistakes early on. Obviously, that first goal they let in, within the first minute of the game, which, obviously we'll break down the game and all that. And one little turnover leads to a beautifully, perfectly placed shot by, who was it? I can't remember. Garnet Hathaway? I had it here. Pavel Zacha. But regardless, other than that, the Jets, kept the Boston Bruins at bay. But at the same time, the Boston Bruins also, obviously, in a game where the Jets did outshoot the Boston Bruins, obviously those numbers are going to be a little bit tilted because, Boston Bruins get up 2-0. Second period, honestly, it didn't even seem like they were actually really trying for offense. Third period, they start off and, they absolutely took it to the Jets the entire third period. So I think that those numbers are a little bit skewed in the Jets' favor. Obviously, when you're trying to shut down a game, you're going to go more into a shell and allow, a lot more. You're not going to be pressing for offense as much. But yeah, a frustrating loss, 3-0. Again, the third goal obviously is an empty netter. We're going to talk about that. We're going to break down the game. If you're here from Twitter to dunk on me, congrats, you are allowed to. I made a really dumb tweet earlier. I don't know, I just had this feeling all day. I just went, I just feel like the Jets are going to do something good tonight. We got to talk about, obviously, the first line and their response from their benching, or as Rick Bowness called it, taking away shifts from them in the last game, and how they responded. But hey, we're going to talk about it all. We're going to get into it. But before we do, quick little ad read here. It's March Mania at Sports Interaction. NHL, NBA, March Madness, MLB, and so much more. It's bananas. That's in the script, I'm sorry. Play Pinata Picks and Minute Madness, exclusive games with insane odds you can't play anywhere else. Make your next bet with Sports Interaction. Download the app in Ontario. Use the QR code at the bottom of the screen. Or head to sportsinteraction.com/SDPN to get started. 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Alrighty. So first off, let's dive into this game. We get some news before the game that Josh Morrissey will be playing tonight. Everyone on Twitter initially thought that Pierre-Luc Dubois was also going to be in the lineup. But unfortunately, it seems he is still battling his injury. And honestly, the Jets need him in a couple weeks when playoffs do start in about a month. They don't need him right now, so I'm totally fine with him making sure he is good to go and fully recovered. But yeah, so getting Josh Morrissey back is huge for the Jets. He is, when he is on, he is one of the guys who leads the team towards the promised land when they are playing well. He usually has a big deal with it. Tonight, honestly, I didn't think he played fantastic. It was all right, but unfortunately, we couldn't contribute to it. I was gonna mention the bet that I had made, or the tweet that I had made. I'm sorry. I, before this game, tweeted out, I have a good feeling today. The Winnipeg Jets will win today. Josh Morrissey will score a goal. And Connor Hellebuyck will show us why we call him Connor Vesnabuck. So, honestly, I would say I went 0 for 3 on that here tonight. Obviously, the Jets didn't win. Josh Morrissey didn't score a goal. But Connor Hellebuyck, I don't think Connor Hellebuyck had a bad game tonight. The two goals that he did let in, obviously, you would hope that your goalie is going to save. The first one, I mean, I give him no No, I have nothing bad to say about Hellebuck on the first goal. That was a complete and utter just defensive breakdown a minute into the game. You can't have that happen. Oftentimes Connor Hellebuck might save you in those situations, but when you give up a slot shot, like, I don't know, like a one-timer slot shot within the first minute of a game, I can't really get upset with my goalie because you are not doing anything to help him there. Moving on, the second goal is just a perfectly placed shot. So again, I have no qualms with how Connor Hellebuck played tonight. I know that people were upset about how David Riddick played against the Carolina Hurricanes. I thought he was, okay. That one goal was not great on the wraparound, but not the point. I don't think that this had anything to do with the goaltending. Obviously, you cannot win a game if you cannot score a goal. And tonight just seemed like the Jets couldn't buy a goal, honestly. How many times did they hit the post? I remember Nate Schmidt hitting one. I think it was in the second period. Kyle Connor must have hit at least two. Scheifele did as well. Scheifele could have had 2 goals in the first period himself. So I don't pin this on a game where the Jets weren't able to create. When the most frustrating thing about how the Jets have played over their bad stretch, I would say at this point we're kind of out of it ever since they played, Minnesota and the Sharks. Since then, they've been kind of building on it. Obviously a great weekend in Florida. And despite not getting the win in Carolina, the Jets have been playing well. They have kind of slowly returned to form despite having, Josh Morrissey out, despite having Pierre-Luc Dubois out. So coming into this game, you still are missing your second line centerman, and you're able to put up a game against the Boston Bruins where, honestly, just a couple bounces, millimeters, inches, could have changed this entire game. But obviously we have to talk about the biggest story coming into this game, which is the first line for the Jets. Obviously it's been Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, and Nino Niederreiter. By the way, I'm going to say this right now. If you are in chat with me here, please let me know what you would do with your lines come full health, or at least come when Dubois is healthy. I'm going to talk about that later, and I would love to see what you guys are saying. I can refer to the chat real easily. But yeah, so I was really looking forward to see how the first line was going to respond here tonight. Unfortunately, it starts off on a bad note. Right off the bat, obviously the third line always starts for the Winnipeg Jets. They get hemmed in their zone pretty quickly, and then eventually, the first line does end up coming out, and just a complete defensive lapse. Puck gets broken in. And to be clear, the first line was playing against Boston's third line. The second line, who we're going to talk about later, was playing against Boston's fourth line. So you kind of had the tops against the bottoms on both ends of the roster. Our third line ended up obviously covering that top line that the Bruins do have of Marchand, Bergeron, and DeBrusk. While the fourth line was mostly tasked with the second line, the Zacha, Krejci, Pasternak. And obviously, it mixes up, but that was generally the match that Rick Bowness was going for tonight. So coming back to the goal, my apologies. This is one where it just seems like there's a lack of coordination and just a defensive breakdown that happens. One of the things that I've constantly, stressed and been frustrated about with the Winnipeg Jets is the way that they allow their goals against when there is a defensive breakdown. You can always pinpoint it to one thing, and that's puck watching. Like, that's just always what ends up happening. Guys get a little bit too infatuated with staring at the puck to cover their man, and unfortunately, it is what it is. Trent Frederick ends up coming into the slot. No one is covering him. The issue here is that as the puck gets broken into the zone, the Boston Bruins have it below the Winnipeg Jets goal line. Kyle Connor, I believe, was the first player on to apply pressure to the man in the corner. Nate Schmidt joins him because he's the left defense or the defenseman there, so it makes sense for him to be taking the guy in the corner. But unfortunately here, Mark Scheifele kind of gets put in this kind of no man's land where, one, he probably could have figured out what he was supposed to do, which is, cover the guy in front of the net. But he's also seeing that Kyle Connor is below the goal line. So naturally he's going, am I covering for you at the point? Am I covering in front of the net? Dylan Sandberg shows up a little bit later. He also, unfortunately, doesn't really have the chance to, get set up and really decide who his man is. Once the puck gets moved away from the Bruins player who had it originally, it gets thrown further behind the net. Nate Schmidt and Kyle Connor have no man now and are sitting behind the net. Dylan Sandberg is trying to figure out if he should be applying pressure to the guy behind the net or the guy in front. Nino Niederreiter isn't close enough to pick up the guy in front. And again, Scheifele is in the no man's land of deciding, am I supposed to be here to, covering the left wing to give you an outlet pass? Should I be covering the guy in front? Obviously, you should always go with the safer option. But unfortunately, I don't even know who to pin this goal on. It just was a complete defensive lapse by the team. And that's going to happen, unfortunately. I would love to sit here and say that this isn't, normal, that this won't happen again. Or that, this was, I think that this happens for a lot of teams regardless. I think there are other teams that are better defensively where it happens a lot less than the Jets. But honestly, this is just a tough one. And again, I can't blame Connor Hellebuyck. I think the blame goes all around to everyone who was on the ice there, because no one picked up the man in front. And that always should be the most important thing, is, picking up a free man sitting in the slot. That is so beyond obvious. I feel like I don't even need to say it. But other than that, honestly, the first line, I thought they had a great response tonight. Connor and Scheifele have had some pretty rough games over the past little bit. I think Scheifele's been a little bit better than Kyle Connor. Kyle Connor just needs to get going. The big issue is with those two guys is that when things aren't going their way, it's really bad because they're not defensive specialists. They're not guys who make up their play elsewhere. The value that they provide is that they score goals, and they're hard to defend. And when things just aren't going their way, when they're not battling for pucks, when the pucks, the bounces aren't going anywhere, it's just unfortunate. And they become a bit of a ghost. Specifically, Connor definitely a lot more than Scheifele, I would say, at least over the last little bit, because Kyle Connor gets paid to put goals in the net, and he's sitting at 1 goal in his last 12 games. Which is not good enough. But like I said, I still did think that they had a much better return to form tonight. They both Connor and Scheifele, the first line was the Jets' best line tonight. Absolutely, definitely, 100%, at least specifically offensively. Both Connor and Connor and Scheifele both had 6 shots. Let me see. Scheifele had 10 attempted shots, and Connor had 8. So both of those guys were firing on all cylinders. Obviously, the power play definitely helps with that. We'll talk about that in a bit. But I at least was glad to see at least a sign of life from these guys. And like I said, Scheifele could have had 2 goals easily in the first period. Both probably I think both of them were on the power play. At least one for sure was, where he was in front of the net and he just missed the net. He just couldn't get it in, unfortunately. And then same thing with Kyle Connor. He was ripping shots all night. And like I said, he hit the post once or twice at least. So I think he'll get his goal, but I think that getting Kyle Connor going again is a huge priority for the Jets right now. I think when Pierre-Luc Dubois, and again we'll talk about it when we get there, I think it's natural for Connor to slide back to play with Dubois, despite the fact that I think that he had a better game tonight with Scheifele. Moving on to line 2, and this is a line that we've been praising over the past few games. Nemestikov has come in and filled in on that second line center fantastically. He has been so much more than we thought we were getting at the trade deadline. I still think it wasn't enough. I'll say that every single time, but regardless, he makes the team better. And tonight, that second line just didn't have it tonight. And I love the guy. Nick Ehlers. I love him. But he I don't know. He just didn't have the best night either. I'm going to rag on Blake Wheeler a lot more later, especially in regards to power play. But other than that, though, Ehlers was still buzzing. He was still getting a lot of, he was still getting the puck, breaking out. What I think that this line does really, really well is their breakouts are fantastic. It seems like Nemestikov is always able to find Ehlers streaking up, and everyone knows on that line that Ehlers is the puck carrier, so get him the puck, and he'll bring it into the zone freely for you. But the issue is, Nick Ehlers was just turnovers tonight, like so many turnovers, so many giveaways. He was just trying to be a little too fancy tonight. The thing with Nick Ehlers is sometimes he kind of gets in his own little like no one else can kind of play with me style of play. Do you get what I mean by that? He's just a little too fast, and sometimes guys aren't where he wants them to be. And one of the things that happened tonight a ton of times is that Nick Ehlers kept trying these drop passes that just would not work. When they work, it's fantastic, and I think it's one of the best things that this line does. But unfortunately, I think that he just wasn't wasn't perfect tonight, unfortunately, and that's what leads to these, the second goal that the Bruins end up scoring. The Pavel Zacha goal happens off of an Ehlers turnover, and unfortunately, it's just not good enough. I still think that Nemesnikov and Ehlers are a fantastic combo. I really like them together. I don't like Blake Wheeler on this line. He is just too slow. He doesn't have the hands that he used to. He's often the guy who's kind of waiting for that drop pass from Nick Ehlers. But the issue is he gets it. He's already flat-footed. He's up against the blue line immediately, and then he gets pressure right away. Unless there's an open lane for him to just skate into the zone, unfortunately, he just doesn't really get the chance to make a nice play, and then he tries forcing it through legs, and this happens and that happens. And it was just very frustrating, I would say. And if you look at like the with or without you heat maps, Nick Ehlers is a completely different player when he doesn't play with Blake Wheeler. I know that we had that really nice pass across from Wheeler to Ehlers the other night. Watch that play over again. Like when Wheeler makes that pass, it goes off of a Carolina Hurricanes skate. That was against the Hurricanes, right? Or the Tampa. I don't know. Anyways, you know which goal I'm talking about. That if that puck went through without getting touched at all, it would have been a foot behind Ehlers. And there was a couple other plays tonight where it was almost the exact same pass, the exact same angle, going the exact same way, and it just matched up deja vu. But no one gets a piece of the puck this time, and it just goes to open ice, and I just feel like it doesn't really make sense to play such a fast player, Nikolai Ehlers, with such a player who is, not as fast and has to grind the game out a little bit more in Blake Wheeler. Because I think Nick Ehlers needs someone who can keep up with him. And I think that, Vlad Nemesnikov isn't the fastest guy, but he's definitely faster than Wheeler. And I think that that's one of the things is that they already have developed this chemistry where they're kind of in sync together. Whereas it feels like Wheeler is just kind of a bit slow, a bit out of sync. But it is what it is. Moving on, the third line, fantastic again tonight. God, I love Morgan Barron. Mason Appleton has strung together a couple really good games, and Adam Lowry is just there. They faced off against the Bruins top line tonight, and I thought they did fantastic. And again, that line was pushing for offense in the third period. Look at even, Mason Appleton on the shorthanded chance there. He ends up drawing a call. I believe it was in the third period. Second period, I want to say. First period. Jeez. The first period was very long. But they're on the PK, and and Mason Appleton gets a break and ends up drawing a call because he completely beats, I believe it was Dmitry Orlov in a puck battle, or in a race to the puck, and it would have been a 2-on-0 for him and Adam Lowry if he wasn't held back. Again, I just have really loved the energy that both Morgan Barron and Mason Appleton have been bringing to the team recently, because, again, the thing that was missing for so long from the Jets was during their slide, it just felt like they didn't have any battle to them. It felt like they were playing kind of like pond hockey, where as soon as they lost the puck, it was, lackadaisical, waiting for other people to get the puck and give it back to you so you can go and do your fun little dangles. And that's why, again, we've had so much praise for Vlad Nemesnikov, for Nino Niederreiter, because these are guys that are getting into the dirty areas. And I think that, look at the games that Morgan Barron has played over the past month. Like, he's been easily one of the better, at least one of the Jets that very obviously cares the most. And I don't want to give participation trophies out for caring, but he's been fantastic. That kind of leads me into, what we're going to talk about next, which is going to be the new lines. So this morning, as I said before, it seemed like everyone seemed to think that Pierre-Luc Dubois was going to be playing tonight, and it's because the line rushes that they had this morning were a little different and included Pierre-Luc Dubois. So the line rushes, I'll read them out for you right now, were Ehlers, Scheifele, Niederreiter, Connor Dubois, Wheeler, Nemestikov, Lowry, Appleton, Barron, Stenlund, Menelainen, and then the scratches. So this is where I'm gonna turn to chat, and I'm gonna see if anyone did what I asked. Hopefully here. Let's see. Oh, no one gave me a hand here, but Noah Lafort is in the chat here, letting me know the post game quotes. So Lowry's post game, he says it was real disappointing. We need the points. We are almost scoreboard watching every night now. I thought we played a real solid good game, limiting their chances and generating our own. And then continuing on, take those positives and bring them to Nashville. That is what's going to be a huge that is going to be a huge game. We know where they are in the standings, and fortunately we get some help from Chicago, but they have some games in hand. Perfect. Lowry summed up exactly what I was going to say at some point here. The Nashville Predators are right in the rear view mirror. So going back to, the general game overview, I thought the Jets did play well. They created a lot of chances, and they did pretty well at stopping the big guns on the Boston Bruins. But unfortunately, it just wasn't enough tonight. But if they play the way that they played tonight, against and most other teams, they should come out with the win. Again, it's very, it's tough to really gain to figure out how the Jets, or to see how this really affects the Jets, because once again, they played against the Boston Bruins, a team that's 51-11-5 after tonight's game. They have 11 regulation losses all year, and I'm pretty sure the Jets had 11 regulation losses in February alone. So it's a completely different. This is a juggernaut. This is a great, fantastic team, and going back to talking about those lines, I gotta say, while I do think that is a step in the right direction, putting Ehlers up with Scheifele and Niederreiter, and then moving Connor down with Dubois, perfect. Absolutely exactly what I would hope for. I've been screaming for Ehlers to play with Scheifele and Nino, because I think that, we've seen what Ehlers and Scheifele can do together. We've seen what Scheifele and Nino can do together. I think just getting another guy who can play a little dirtier, in Nino, and get the puck to both Scheifele and Ehlers, that's fantastic. And then obviously we move over to the Kyle Connor side of things. When he was having a really tough start to his year, who got him going? It was Pierre-Luc Dubois. Obviously they'll be playing, they have him here with Blake Wheeler, which I think is a bit of a kind of frustrating to me, because I think that Nemesnikov has been so much better than Blake Wheeler has been in the top six as of late. But I digress. It is what it is. And then the third line gets jumbled up, because obviously Nemestikov bumps down, which bumps Morgan Barron down, which I am not a big fan of. I think that he should absolutely be on that third line, but also Appleton too. I personally would have bumped Lowry down, and put Nemestikov in the middle and go Barron, Nemestikov, Appleton. That would be a fantastic shutdown line who can provide some offense. I just think that Adam Lowry right now this year isn't that positive of a player for the Jets. Yes, he can be a part of a shutdown line, but the Jets need some more scoring. And this is what brings me to my frustration with this next set of lines. Again, I'll say it for you guys one more time. Nick Ehlers, Scheifele, Nino, Connor Dubois, Wheeler, Nemestikov, Lowry, Appleton, Barron, Stenlund, Menelainen, is that the Jets just seem married, even with a new coach this year, to this whole top six, bottom six thing. I don't get it. And I understand that your third line is going up against top lines. That is very, very clear. It's, they're still playing a ton. They're still contributing. But the issue is I if you look around the league, if you look at all the different, contenders right now, they all have three scoring lines. I know this is maybe a bad comparison, because it is to the Boston Bruins, but if you look at their top three lines, it's Brad Marchand, Bergeron, DeBrusk. Fantastic first line. Second line, Pavel Zacha, David Krejci, David Pastrnak. insane. A fantastic second line. And then their third line, Tyler Bertuzzi, Charlie Coyle, Trent Frederick. Listen, I know Trent Frederick isn't necessarily a scoring, winger or anything like that, but you look at this lineup and you look at the guys they have out. I mean, Taylor Hall himself, he hasn't been as fantastic as he used to be, but in a third, on a third line scoring role, absolutely. I'm sure he would probably even fit into that top six where Zacha is. Or somewhere. I'm not too sure. I'm not a Bruins fan. Maybe I see my buddy Nick is in chat here. Maybe he can let us know where Taylor Hall should line up. But then you even still have a guy like Nick Foligno, which I know that he isn't a big fan of him, but that's still a guy who can put some points in. This is you look at that team, and it's just miles ahead. The third line in terms of scoring. If the Jets want to be a contending team, I think they need 3 scoring lines, because one night the top line isn't going to be going. The next night the second line isn't going to be going. And you can't really rely right now on Morgan Barron, Lowry, and Appleton to be scoring every night to pick up the slack for those guys. So realistically, when I look at the lines now, what I would lean towards is going with the whole duo system. Right now, we've seen a couple, 3 solid duos break out. We've seen Scheifele and Nino play great together. The amount of opportunities from below the goal line to, passing to the slot that those two have created together since being joined has been fantastic. Obviously, we know what Kyle Connor and Pierre-Luc Dubois can do together. Pierre-Luc Dubois is the best partner for Kyle Connor, period. Over the past however many years that they've been together, that is the best centerman to play with Kyle Connor. Numbers-wise, statistics-wise, everything like that. And then you can have Vlad Nemestikov and Nick Ehlers together. Again, them two together have been fantastic. And getting Ehlers going has been one of the key things that helped the Jets start rolling over the past few games. So I think it's really important. It's really important to try and keep Nick Ehlers going. It's really important to get Kyle Connor going again. And it's really important to get to keep Mark Scheifele and Nino together to try and develop that chemistry that they have there. But regardless, I think Scheifele, no matter what, just needs someone who works on his line, who is willing to go into the corners and get him the puck, because that helps him a ton, definitely, 100%. So my proposal is, as much as I yell and scream about how little time that Nick Ehlers gets on the ice. By the way, he only had 13:55 tonight, which is due to the power play. Jeez, I'm going to be going long tonight. I haven't even touched on the power play. I just think that you have to roll those 3 duos and give them partners. An example would be Scheifele, Nino, and Morgan Barron. And then do Connor, Dubois, and Wheeler. Sure. Then do Nick Ehlers, Vlad Nemestikov, and Mason Appleton. I don't know. Regardless, there are 3 wingers that aren't a part of those duos that you can figure out and cycle through and figure out who actually fits with each of those lines. But you can play those top 3 lines and play them, you can roll those 3 lines out and touch your 4th line a lot less, and then that way it's a lot less of a big deal if you want to keep a guy like Saku Maenalainen, who is fantastic on the PK, but as soon as it turns to 5v5, he's a pumpkin. You can limit his 5v5 ice time. You can limit it to keeping him as a specialist. Same thing with Kevin Stenlund. Same thing with David Gustafsson. Even David Gustafsson would look really good, potentially moving up and playing on the wing with, one of those sets of lines, because he's another guy who just works his ass off, wins puck battles. And I think that, even going back to the Moose days, he's shown that he can handle a decent amount of ice time. He's another guy who I think that they have some untapped potential in. And that's really what it is. I just really want to see the Jets put their best foot forward and try to act like a contender as much as possible, because I just do not believe that a top 6 of scorers and a bottom 6 of guys who shut it down is going to work. I think you need more depth. And unfortunately, Chevy only went out and got 2 guys. When Perfetti's back, we have another argument of where to put him as well too. But yeah, I just don't believe in the top 6, bottom 6 mentality. Anyways, let's move on to the power play. and this will be probably one of my last things before concluding all this and then, heading out tonight. The Jets go 0 for 5 on their power play. Listen, I thought their power plays were still pretty decent. They were moving the puck really well, at least the first 3 or 4 of them. I think they went 0 for 5, I believe. But the first, couple ones, I'm pretty sure the first one they had 4 shots. The second one they had they were moving the puck really well and getting shots from a bunch of different opportunities. But I can't help but look at this and go, okay, first of all, I'm just going to get this out of the way time on ice wise for the power play here. There is no reason why with the way that the Jets have their power play set up, keep that in mind, that one power play should be playing 6.5 to almost 7 minutes on the power play, and then the other one getting less than 2 minutes. The Winnipeg Jets have decided that they want to break up their top, they don't want every single of their best power play guy on the top line, on the top unit. And that's why we have Blake Wheeler playing in a spot where, Nick Ehlers should potentially be. I counted on one of the I think it was one of the first 2 power plays. I counted, I think, 4 brutal grenade passes that Blake Wheeler gave to Mark Scheifele, 2 of which he literally just gave back to him immediately, and you can almost tell that he was just like, come on, man, like give me something better. I can't work with that. Like, you have to give me something better if you want me to be taking my nice quick wrist shots from the slot. That's just not going to work. And then there's times later on in the game where, again, and I'm harping on this because the Jets didn't score on it, there was tons of chaos on the left side of the ice. The puck juts out and goes over to Blake Wheeler and has a perfect shot on net. Like, the most clean alley towards the net to walk in and take a hard wrist shot or a slap shot or whatever Blake Wheeler's want. Whatever Blake Wheeler wants, dealer's choice. And he ends up, throwing it back door to Kyle Connor, where all of the chaos already was, where all of, the majority of the Bruins players were. And Jeremy Swayman makes a fantastic save. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't think that this is necessarily... My issue isn't necessarily choosing to go for the pass here, because the Jets did almost score off of it. My issue is that Blake Wheeler is a one-trick pony. It is so obvious. It is so obvious for other teams to, 1, target him on the power play, 2, apply pressure, and 3, there's no chance that he's shooting. On a power play where you have Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, Josh Morrissey, and Nino Niederreiter, why is Blake Wheeler going to shoot? He's not. He won't, because 1, there's so many other shooters on this power play, and 2, he's not a shooter. He's just not going to. He's a pass-first mentality guy. So what I think provides a lot of danger to a power play is unpredictability in regards to the defending team. If Blake Wheeler gets the puck, every other player on the Bruins can just man up and take a man, cover up all the passing lanes, and Blake Wheeler is going to try to force it into somewhere where the Bruins are just going to pick it off. I actually was thinking in the middle of the game, with how many turnovers he had on the power play, that the Bruins must have pre-scouted this. Like, the Bruins must have been like, okay, Blake Wheeler doesn't have the hands to do it, so as soon as he gets the puck, get on his ass and push him up against the boards, and you'll get the puck from him. It is so frustrating. It is so frustrating when you see that your power play is generating a lot. It's clicking. It's starting to get there. But every time that this other guy gets the puck, he's unable to handle it. Like, there were times where either one, like I said, he gets pressed up against the boards and loses it. When, if there's a man on you, that means there's only 3 other defenders on your on the penalty kill for the other team. Put it into open ice. 2 people have to be open, potentially. Definitely 1. And if not, there should be open ice in the corner, around the rim, something. You need to find a better option other than just putting it into other guys' skates. or if you're pressured at the blue line, because oftentimes he's now up at the blue line. Like there was one where he just straight up lost the puck. Like he had pressure on him, but it's not like the guy came up and poked it away from him. He just mishandled the puck completely. I just don't get it. And again, coming back to the ice time thing, why is one, if you're gonna split up your units to try and get both units to have a bit of potential to score, why is one playing like what I can't do math, like 4 times as much, like 3 times as much? Like it doesn't make sense. So I am pro load up one unit, play them for as much time as you can possibly. But in that scenario, it requires that Nick Ehlers is on that top power play unit. It just doesn't make sense to me how Rick Bowness can watch, and they do video scouting after. The power play has been an issue for how long now? We saw a slight resurgence over the weekend, but before the weekend, they had given up as many shorthanded goals as they had scored power play goals in this past 6 games. Like, I just don't understand how there hasn't been any sort of change on the power play as of late, especially with the woes that they've had. And even when they are good, you just have to watch. I just don't get it. I just don't understand how Blake Wheeler has still earned all of this ice time. He's just lost a step. And I love Blake Wheeler. I used to be one of the biggest Blake Wheeler defenders for so long. And he was always one of the most underrated guys in the league for years. But at this point, he's a third line player. I'm sorry to admit it. On a good team, he is a third line player. And the Jets, of course, there's injuries. It makes sense. But we all know that as soon as Cole Perfetti comes back, as soon as Pierre-Luc Dubois comes back, there are guys who are more deserving who are going to get bumped down the lineup of Vlad Nemestikov. Again, he's been fantastic since on both ends of the ice too, since coming over. And we all know that it's going to be Blake Wheeler playing in that top 6 instead of Vlad Nemestikov, instead of Cole Perfetti. I would be very surprised if he ends up getting bumped down. So again, it something's got to give at some point, but regardless, I'm always gonna yell and scream about the power play. I'm always gonna yell and scream about Nick Ehlers not getting enough usage, and I'm always gonna scream and yell about Blake Wheeler losing a step. Again, I want the best for him, and I wouldn't be saying this if I didn't feel like he had lost a step. I want the best for him. I wish that he was still how he was in 2018, but that was 5 years ago, and he's 36 now. It's just how Father Time is undefeated. But I'm not saying he's fully washed. He still can provide value, and that's why I think that also reducing his ice time would allow him to have more jump in his step. Anyways, I digress. That's it for at least the game. The one final thing, we'll put a bow on it all here. The Jets did play well, and as I said before, I think if they play this way against, most other teams, I think they usually come out with a win. The Jets will have a very, very important game on Saturday against the Nashville Predators. They play again the next day against the St. Louis Blues, I believe. Excuse me. And then the day after, let me just make sure. No, not the day after. Then on the 21st, the Coyotes. So a string of 3 games that are very, very winnable. And at the point of the season we are right now, the Jets need every point that they can get. And especially they need every point that they can get against Nashville. And they need to limit as much points that Nashville can get, as they have now stepped up as the competition for that final wildcard spot for the Jets. But like I said, if they carry this into Saturday's game, I would be very shocked if they didn't end up winning. Regardless, Liz will be here with you guys on Saturday. It is a afternoon game, so hopefully the guys are ready to go. I'm sure they'll have a couple practices in between. Hopefully we see Pierre-Luc Dubois return. Of course, hopefully fully. Oh, geez, I'm getting hiccups. Hopefully fully healed. But anyways, while you're here, we have a decent amount of people watching tonight. Thank you all for tuning in. Please do like the stream. It really helps us out algorithm wise. And I'm really enjoying doing these shows here. This was a fun one, a very entertaining game. Although frustrating, but that will have to do it for me here tonight. Please follow me on Twitter at NHL Chunky. Follow Liz on Twitter at Liz Hood. Follow at SDPN Sports. I don't know. Check out Sports Interaction if you feel like putting some bets down. Make sure you consult the resources in the description if you have any issues with gambling. That is more important than anything here. But thank you all for tuning in. I hope you guys have yourselves a wonderful evening. Enjoy your St. Patty's Day. Don't drink too much green beer. I definitely won't. I'm not working on Saturday for a reason, guys. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, have yourselves a wonderful evening. Thank you again for tuning in. Enjoy your weekends, and I'll see you guys, I think, on Tuesday for the Arizona game. Liz will take care of you guys until then. Thanks for tuning in.
Game over! Powered by Sports Interaction, Canada Sportsbook.